morning covers my first experiences with this church through the 7-year ministry of Bob Ross, and it was a period of about 12 to 15 years. I decided to call the speech All Souls, with a stress on people during this time has made a difference in my life. And I was shooting for the 10 minutes I thought I would have at the beginning, and then every time I revised the speech to try to shorten it, it got longer. A couple of days ago, I heard I actually had 5 to 7 minutes, so I hope there's no one with a hook to pull me off stage. And please bear with me as I talk very fast, even after cutting as much as I could. When I first heard that the name All Souls is used for several UU congregations, I was kind of surprised. It struck me as incongruous, a name more associated with traditional denominations. However, now I think it perfectly expresses my feelings about people that I've met here, people who've not only been a physical, social, and intellectual presence in my life, but one that is deeply spiritual. I'm not quite old enough to have been a founding member, but when my family joined, it was still a relatively young congregation. By the way, it was called the UU Church of Costa Mesa at the time. And it had several members that actually were founders. The minister was Roger Walk, but he was struggling in the shadow of Claire Blauvelt, a retired Universalist minister who had worked with the founders to establish this church, and I understand he actually worked without salary for them during those years. I had the privilege of hearing him speak one Sunday morning, and he was indeed a commanding and impressive presence. And there was no way that Roger Walk could measure up to this legacy. Many of the first members I met were as impressive as Dr. Blauvelt, bright, dignified, eloquent, and very committed. And I've cut the number of people I'm going to talk about, so pay attention. One of these was a woman named Jeanette. I don't remember her last name, and she was then about the age that I am now, and she was always impeccably dressed, and I mean stockings, high heels, even sometimes a little hat. Mulford, Jeanette Mulford, good, someone remembers. She had a lot of opinions, and when she got an opportunity to express them, she always did. She began every time she talked by telling us how long she had been a member. And once she had established those credentials, she would tell us something we were doing wrong, or how things ought to be done, or how things used to be done. And at first this really annoyed me, but I soon joined the others in the congregation in regarding her with respect and affection for her determination and her sense of right behavior. She's one of the souls that floats above us now, and sometimes now when I stand up to make a statement, I think that I'm calling on my inner Jeanette. 20 of the most impressive members and strongest members eventually became so frustrated with Roger Walk's ministry that they broke away and established the Channing Society, which met in members' homes. It was a tremendous loss to us at the time, but although they were a close, wonderful group of UU friends, their structure was very limiting, and Channing eventually literally died out. In later years, a few of them would show up in services once in a while, and they were always interested in us, but they never really came back. And their lesson has been an important insight for me throughout all the losses we've had over the years. Although we certainly need our UU friends, we also need commitment to something bigger, and that is what endures. When Roger's ministry finally ended, we had a wonderful interim named Arthur Olson, who helped us get back on our feet. He and his wife, Catherine, were Bostonians, and I'll never hear the term "pop the caw" without thinking of the Olsons. In their limited time with us, they totally endeared themselves, and after this assignment, Arthur stayed in Orange County and helped start the South County Church, which has evolved into Tapestry, the congregation where I hold dual membership. In 1972, we were ready to seek another full-time minister, and 6 of us set off for the UU General Assembly in Dallas, with paperwork in hand and interviews scheduled with several candidates. We talked to every single one of them, but none of them seemed right. And then, ironically, 2 of our members, Mary Williams, who was our president at the time, and Sandy O'Keefe, a woman whom some of you know, went to a party at GA one night, and they met Bob and Kathy Ross. and the rest is history. I'll always feel a great fondness for those years, those 7 years that Bob was with us. It was kind of a heyday time, and the souls are an absolute kaleidoscope. Bob strongly promoted the RE program, and we had 40 to 50 kids participating regularly with programs at every level. A huge success was the About Your Sexuality program for the older kids, and it had 2 full classes, one for junior high kids, and I helped teach that, and another for high schoolers. My daughter Kelly was in that high school class, and there she met a young man named Christopher Heaton, Shirley Thorne's son. And they're now in their 50s, and they're still friends. The vitality of the church itself paralleled that of the RE program with a strong board and good attendance. And by the way, Bob suggested that we change the name of the church to the Orange Coast UU Church, which it is to this day. We were a very, very social group. We didn't have options to plan our social life, so we just had parties, and a lot of them. We loved to get together, we loved to dance, and anytime we heard that J.J. Mack was playing somewhere, off a group of us would go and dance away. You probably never heard of J.J. Mack, but to us, he was a famous rock star. We also had group campouts. Nothing to do with the Benneville Pines at the time, but outings that we planned along the coast of California on our own for a conglomerate of kids and adults. And by the way, I have another member of Jeanette at this point. She did not leave with the chanting group. This was her church, and she was very tenacious, and she was still expressing opinions, still dressed to the nines, and on several occasions standing up to criticize Bob Ross for preaching so many sermons about sex. Now, he doesn't remember this, but I do. We were not just a group of party animals. We were all very serious about Unitarian Universalism. Bob set up a counseling service for young men of draft age, teaching them how to achieve official status as conscientious objectors. He also conducted seminars on death and dying and helped us consider this existential part of our lives and prepare documents expressing our wishes, and those were at the time on file in the church. He recently reminded me of something that will be very relevant to you, that at the time he came with us, we had sold off the edge of the property that is off on the edge of the canyon where the boat buildings are now. And he helped us raise some money so that we could buy it back. And if you think of us not owning that land, that would have affected the enlargement that we did, plus the sale of our property, I'm sure. He had another deadly serious activity, which was the subject of much amusement. He arrived early every Sunday morning to line up the chairs into perfect rows. Now, mind you, the custodians had already arranged the chairs, okay, but Bob came and practiced his little obsession every morning, every Sunday, before he could then preach to us. I have one more soul to tell you about, and that's one of the members during the Bob Ross years. She was a very short, plump woman in her 80s named Ruby Locken. I don't know if anyone remembers her. She had actually come to the West Coast in a covered wagon. And at that time, she was driving a Barracuda. And planning all of our circle suppers as well as attending all of our parties. As a contrast to Jeanette, on Sunday mornings, Ruby dressed in some baggy, colorful dress, kind of like a muumuu, and she would come merrily bopping down the aisle, headed that way at the time, with a big smile on her face and in perfect time to the music of the day. And we wanted to show her how much we loved her, and so we planned a Sunday morning service, which was a celebration of her life, a little bit of a memorial while she could still hear it from us. And Walt Johnson created a poem for her that day, which was called appropriately, "Ruby Ain't No Lady." These are just a few of the souls in my life, and the totality is an endless procession, and many of them are in this room. I'm immensely grateful for my introduction to UU philosophy and people that took place within these walls. And here I graduated from stay-at-home mom to full-time career woman, and 2 UU members were very tangibly related to that. My first serious job, my first full-time job, was writing for an educational film company owned by a man named Don Miller. He, at that time, was a member of this church, and he recently came back and left again. But at the time, he had twins, a boy and a girl, that were in the junior high sexuality class. And we'd gotten to know him, and he offered me a job at Concert Media. And a few years later, Barbara Davia, I just saw, gave me a lead on a job through the Coast Community College District that eventually led to my academic career at Golden West College. Each of our stories will have many chapters in our new home. For me, I'm a bit of an amalgam of all the souls that I have met here, especially Jeanette and Ruby. I'm old, I'm opinionated, I'm joyful, and I'm very tenaciously a Unitarian Universalist.